Hey guys, we're back. So today we're going to work on the neck. And the neck is the piece between the collar, the radar section there, and the brain. And so this is the thing that supports the brain, but also, if you'd like, you can make it have motion. So you can either do a static neck or you can do one that goes up and down so the bubble pops up and down, which is what we're going to do. So there are a couple things you have to keep in mind. So the club standards for the neck are a 1.5 inch piece of PVC. So this inner diameter here fits perfectly on this bottom piece here, like where you see this aluminum pipe here. So this would actually fit perfectly on the part that sticks up here. And this outer diameter fits super tight, but it does fit inside the radar section. So you could just statically, put it in there, put a screw underneath them from the bottom, and then on the top you could put this neck bracket, and then of course it would just go up. Okay, the problem is that this pipe, you'd have to sand this way down to get it to be able to move up and down inside that shaft. It's a real pain. And sanding a piece of plastic like this, you'd never get it perfectly round. So there's all kinds of problems with using this actual piece here. So what I wanted to do is use a different piece, a metal piece. And I actually found this aluminum pipe online on Amazon that has the perfect outside diameter to fit inside the radar section. And it's a nice snug fit, but yet it moves. So it's just a hair less than the radar section opening, so this slides up and down perfectly. The problem is at this end, because pipe is not spec'd the same way. So all PVC drainage pipe, which is what this is, when it says 1.5 inch, it means the interior diameter, the inner diameter of the pipe, not the exterior. The exterior is actually bigger than 1.5 inch. So if you put like a ruler across it, you'd see it's close to outside like 1 7/8. So and 1 7/8 is what actually fits inside that radar section. So the outside diameter on this aluminum pipe is actually basically 1 7/8 for this. But the inner diameter is much bigger because the wall of this is much thinner, obviously, if you look at the two in their cross section, right? So I needed to get this to mount at the other end too, and it's got to be a solid mount because this is sporting everything from the brain on up, right? And so this is the finished product, but how I did this was a little unique. So I got this, again, piece of pipe here, and it has an inside diameter of 1 and about 3/4. And so, or it could be, I think it's 1 3/4. And then the outside diameter is close to 1 7/8, which is what I wanted. So now that I have this inside diameter that's too big, and I need it to be, instead of that, I need basically the inside diameter to be closer to 1.5. How do I do that? All right, so I tried to find a different size pipe that would actually slide inside here and make sort of a collar sleeve. Couldn't do it, just couldn't find the right size. So let me take this apart and I'll show you what I did. Okay, so I've got this apart, but basically what I did is I found another piece of pipe, right, that had the perfect inside diameter that would slip over this collar here. Right, so it's perfect. The problem is that this pipe then does not fit inside my main pipe. It's just a little bit too big, right? The outside diameter turns out to be a little bit too big. So there's no pipe that will fit exactly. So what I did is I took this pipe that I know fits perfectly on the inside diameter, and all I did is I just cut a piece off the end, and then I slit the piece into 4 pieces. And so what I ended up with are these little sort of rounded shims. But the thickness of them is perfect. So when you put these on, now that they can ride super close to the shaft, this outer one now fits perfectly over here. It's a super nice tug, nice fit, like perfect. You couldn't get any better than that. And then what I did is the support shaft has a preset screw hole from the one side, but then I also drilled one on the other side, as you can see here, through here, and so it'll have basically 2 screws holding it together. And when I have this all screwed together with these shims in here, it is rock solid. So really got lucky just by using 2 different pipes with different inside diameters and outside diameters, and just when you calculate them all together and you figure it out, then it actually all works. So it turned out really good. And so now what happens is this bellows right here gets put on here, and it gets trapped between the pipe, and that's what holds it against that collar. So now I can put this together, and then my next step is to find out how much travel I'm going to have when this goes up and down. So from this point to the high point, right, what's my travel distance? And that's what I want to mark down below when this is inside the radar section, so I know exactly how much it's traveling, which I think is about 3 to 4 inches tops. And I'm going to mark that, and then that will give me where I need to put my stops for the up and down, and then it'll also help me to know if I need to cut this pipe a little shorter or not when it goes through the radar section. And then we'll get to the part of how we're actually going to mechanize this, but let me get this all assembled first. Alright, so here is our finished piece. There is the neck bracket, here's the neck bellows, and then the neck itself. And again, the way we did this is we put the bellows on first, but in order to trap it here so that you don't see a gap there and this doesn't fall down, what we did is we created a little sort of retaining ring. And all this was this was my test piece, but basically all I did is I took that 1.5 inch PVC pipe, which you know the inside diameter fits perfectly around that part of the neck that sticks out. I just slit a small ring from it and created a retaining ring. So basically I put on the rubber piece first, I slid the retaining ring on, which holds it tight against here, and then I put my pipe on, and then I just folded this back basically to put my 2 screws down here to mount this. And so there it is. There's the finished piece basically for the neck. And so now I've got the rubber on here. Now I can actually put this in the radar section and then start measuring basically the distance of how far it's going to travel. So that's next. So I'm going to clean up here first, and then we'll pull out the radar section and see how this all goes together. Oh, one last thing before we get to the next step. There's these rings here. These are support rings. There's 9 of them, and they basically go inside the groove of each one of these joints in the bellows. And what that does is it keeps it in shape. So you can see when I push down on it how it kind of crushes and everything. When you put these rings in, which is made by one of the club vendors, you basically will support those, and then it'll go up and down and keep its shape, you know, as it's moving up and down. So this is silicone rubber. So silicone rubber is super strong, tough stuff. You can really stretch this. It won't tear. It won't crack and dry out like regular rubber. But the problem with silicone rubber is it doesn't hold its shape unless you have something supporting it underneath, and that's why we have all these rings. So all you do is you just take the smallest ring first and go all the way to the bottom and get it into the groove there, and then just keep doing it all the way up until you've got all your rings in. This rubber is actually made, now if you're not using silicone you may not have to do that, right? This rubber happens to be made by one of the club members, Will Huff, who works actually in the movie industry. He does all those monsters you see in movies and stuff like that. And so this ring set is specifically made for his rubber. And when we get to the arms, we have the same type of thing here. But anyway, just get these in here if you're using silicone bellows, and that will support all this. All right, so here's the next step. So basically what we got here, I just put the collar on top of the torso right now, just so I can get underneath it. But basically, you can see here at the top, here is this neck I was talking about, and you can see it sort of slides up and down here, right, in the robot. And this is its down position right here. So this would be as far down as it goes. And so what we're trying to do here is on the bottom inside here, where you probably get the camera in there if you can see it, but basically inside here, where this pipe is coming down through the collar, we're going to want to put a mark up here at where it comes through at both positions. So when I say both positions, I'm talking about the lowest position that we want it to go and the highest position that we want it to go. So this would be its down position right here. And if we took the regular bellows, right, and just at its normal height, it'd be somewhere probably around there would be its high position. And so why we need to do that? We need to mark the pipe because what we have to do is put stops at the top and the bottom position, because the way that we're going to handle this, as opposed to a lot of people, is we're actually going to use a motor with a motor controller on it and a kangaroo on it to basically know its two end stopped positions. So in other words, the motor won't over rev and go past the stops, so it doesn't either damage the motor or try to damage anything up here when it's going to its upper and lower position. Now it's pretty clean right here. It's a little dry right there right now, but you can see it moves up and down really nicely. So let me pull this out. This is what I was talking about before, where this pipe here fits perfectly inside this opening. It can use a little sanding on the opening because it's not perfectly round, because remember this is all acrylic discs here, but you can see just going up and down right here is what we're after, right? And so what we're going to do here is basically just do these marks, and then once we have the marks, we can put our stops in. Once we have the stops up and down, then we can do a little sanding on the inside of that slot and go ahead and just make it so it's pretty smooth. Put probably a little grease in there, some kind of lubricant, not oil-based, some kind of, there's different types of Teflon lubricants you can use, and that'll make it nice and smooth. Then what we'll do after we get that done is we have to make this, basically, this piece right here, this has to join somehow with this as far as being able to turn at the same time, because when the radar section at the top here turns, right, we want the head to turn, the brain at the top to turn also at the same time. And in order to do that, you got to have some kind of connection so that when this turns, it turns this shaft, and the shaft doesn't just stay there. Remember, because we have it moving up and down, we can't just fix it to the radar section. We have to have some kind of a mechanism to make it pull along, and that's going to be a slot that is inside the radar section. And I'm on the pipe, I'm going to have to put like a little rail so that it rides in that slot. So now it can ride up and down, but at the same time, if this turns, it also will engage that and turn the brain section, if that makes sense. So that's what we're up to next. So first we're going to mark our marks to get our top and bottom positions, and then once we have those positions, we got to create some kind of stop, and then once we have those stops, then we have to create the keyway that is going to keep these two in sync. And before we create that keyway, we got to make sure that we have this mount here, because remember there's 4 holes that mount onto the plate. So everything's got to be lined up perfectly. We've got to make sure that the eyes are facing forward exactly, so we actually know where that keyway needs to be. And then once we get that everything lined up, then we can put that little keyway on here. It's probably going to be most likely on here, whatever the upper and lower distance here, right? We're going to put, you know, a little like sort of strip here. I don't know what it's going to be made out of yet, probably PVC or something, and then it gets screwed in there, and that is the little sort of keyway that keeps the two in sync but still allows this to ride up and down. So that's the next piece. That's probably going to take a little bit of work to get that done, but we're going to work on that next. And then once we have that all finished, then we can actually start talking about the mechanism or the motors that we're actually going to drive this up and down. Once we get by that and that's all finished, we really can put the entire head section, so that'd be from the collar on up, completely together, 100% assembled and ready to go. And all what's really going to happen is we're going to be able to take it off the robot and then with some wires and everything basically disconnect it if we ever needed to. So that's where we're at, and we'll continue on as soon as I get these pieces finished. Alright, so I got the neck in here, and basically what I've done is I put 2 stops in it. So I'm going to just push it from underneath so you can see what it looks like. So basically if I go up, there's a stop there, so it won't go up any further, and if I let it drop down, there's a stop there. So you got 2 stops, right? Basically, I think it needs a little air hole. So I think I'll just push a little air hole in somewhere so that it can collapse correctly. But basically, that's it. So, and all I did was use 2 little screws, which I'll show you in a second. But that's all you need to do now that I have my full travel, full up, full down, and that's kind of where I'm going to leave it. And that's it. Now we just have to motorize it. Oops, sorry, one more thing before we end this portion of the video. I forgot to show you. I said I was going to show you. But this is how I'm doing my stops. So basically, here's my mark. Excuse me, it's on this side actually. I think it was on the other side. But anyway, this is below the radar section here, and this is if you measured up through the radar section, that would be the stop at the top here, which is just a big screw that I screwed into the aluminum pipe here, and that's how it stops when it hits the top of the radar section. And then on the bottom, same thing. I just have a screw here. So once it's in, I can reach up, just hand tighten a screw in there, and that's the up stop, basically, is all I'm doing. And if I don't like where they stop for whatever reason, I can just take it out, move an inch or so over, drill another hole in a different position, and very easy to do once you have it all ready to go. So that was the last piece. So that's going to be it until we can get the central support system built, which is going to be next, before I can actually motorize this. And you will see why once we get to that point. But we need something to mount the motor on and everything that we're going to use to make this go up and down. And so we have to get that piece next.